again is a disobedient Muslim wife. This is a love story written in English and translated into Arabic by Dr. A. Ahmed. Copyright. All rights are reserved. All characters in this book are fictitious and any resemblance to real people. Living or dead is purely coincidental. No part of this book may be reproduced, stored in a tribal system, or transmitted in any form or by any means without the prior written permission of the author except by a reviewer who may quote brief paragraphs in a review to be printed in a newspaper, general journal, or a school magazine. This is a love story about three Muslim girls who are subjected to gross injustice, severe violence, and abhorrent persecution by Muslim men, religious leaders, Sharia judges, and police officers in the Islamic community and the religion of Islam and its hostile, hateful, and abusive teachings against human rights, which are uncountable. For example, beating of women, child marriage, female genital mutilation, slaying them in honor killings, inequality between males and females in inheritance, testimony in court, marriage, divorce, men's guardianship over women, controlling their lives and destinies as if they are minors, physically handicapped or mentally retarded, and forcing them to wear the ibaya, veil, hijab, niqab, or the humiliating black burqa as if they are frightening ghosts. Muslim men are allowed by the Quran to have sex or rather rape without the need for marriage, captive women of war such as wives, daughters, sisters, and even mothers of the defeated enemies who are called unclean infidels. Islam forbids a Muslim woman to become a president of a country or a boss at work or a judge in a court, and she is strictly forbidden to lead men or women in prayer as imama. Moreover, the Prophet Muhammad said the woman is an unclean creature, just like a dog and a donkey, and therefore as a defiled being, she annuls the man's prayer if she passes in front of him while he's praying. Many Islamic countries prevent women from going to school and work, and they are not permitted to drive cars, bicycles, or motorbikes. They are forbidden to practice any kind of sports, such as soccer, basketball, volleyball, and tennis, and they are not allowed to go to gymnastics, beaches or swimming pools, cinemas or theaters, or act as heroines in movies or actors in the stage in plays, or compete in beauty contests such as Miss World or Miss Universe. None of none of the Muslim women and girls is allowed to leave the house without her husband or with a muhram. Man, the woman is forbidden to marry, such as her father or brother. They are also not allowed to fall in love with men before marrying or choose their life partners. This story is about three innocent girls, namely Intisar, Firdos, and Muna. Chapter 65. Visiting the detained son in Kasala prison. When the leader of the spies arrived in the city of Gadarif and informed the so-called legitimate husband of the alleged runaway Muslim wife Intisar about his opinion about the madness of her lover, Sami, he was expelled and lost his job immediately. However, Mr. Tia, with the shaitan telling Hassan Mahjub al-Hilal and refused to accept his decision to dismiss him. He told him that he worked for Mustafa Osman al-Tayyib. Hassan told him after Mustafa was arrested with the leader of the second gang, Abu Shakur al-Kalib, the son of the ugly prostitute Kaltumaya, and his three spies who were arrested in Kassala prison, he was officially appointed in charge of the search team by the big man. Now the important question becomes who is the big man? Tia thinks that he was hired by the rich old man's son, and therefore Mustafa is the big man for him. Hassan argued that he was delegated by Mustafa's father, and for him the father is the big man. This issue resulted in major disagreements and heated arguments. Everyone has put his feet on the ground Everyone has put his foot on the ground, and no one is ready to move a single foot back based on his firm decision. Finally, Chief Tia told the alleged husband Hassan, "You can go to the all convicted father in Kobar prison in Khartoum city. And as for me and my two men, we will go to the son who is under investigation in Kassala prison." However, no such proposal was approved by the two criminals. The two ugly spies, Rat and Eagle or Jigir and Nisir, asked their leader Tia to agree to a compromise. Mr. Fattah, the man of wonders and the secretary of Mr. Mahjoub al Hilali, came up with a good solution. He said that the problem must be presented first to the son Mustafa in Kassala prison, and if he does not solve it or provide good advice, then it must be referred to his father, Mr. Osmal Taib, who is in Kobar prison in Khartoum city. Without another alternative, the two disputing leaders agreed to travel the next day to the city of Kassala and visit the eldest son of the despicable old man, who is also the brother of the groom Sami. The visitation time has been set to 4 p.m. On the same special day that the two intimate lovers, Intisar and Sami, were married in a holy Christian marriage, the three spies met the so-called legal Muslim husband of the disobedient Muslim wife Intisar and the secretary Fattah, the man of wonders, at the Kasala bus station. Then they took two taxis to the prison. The two feuding leaders, Tia and Hassan, still harbor a deep grudge and hatred for each other in their hearts and thus refuse to travel on the same bus from Gadarif to Kasala. At the entrance to the prison, they fill out visitor forms and waited for the exact time of 4 p.m. During the waiting period, the two groups sat separately. Hassan and Fattah sat under the shade of a large tree, and Mr. Tia and his two spies occupied the shade of another tall tree. When the visitation time began, an angry warden came out of the prison gate and started shouting loudly the names of the various visitors. On each visit, 10 visitors will be allowed to visit their relatives, friends, former jail inmates, or criminal friends. There are more than 200 visitors that day. Every 10 visitor will be given 10 minutes. The two opposing sides will call with the other 5 visitors after 6 sets had finished. They're informed in advance that their allotted 10 minutes run between 5:05 and 5:15 p.m. One extra minute will not be allowed after 5:15 p.m. They have to deliver their message during that time period only. Mr. Tia, who is used to this kind of prison visit, told Hassan to speak quickly and very loudly first. Otherwise, they would wait another week for Mustafa's next visit. The prison authority will not allow the same visitor to visit the same inmate more than once a week. Satan's eldest son, Tia, of course, speaks from long experience because he has visited many times or has been visited by fellow gangsters. Hassan understood that the 10 minutes is a short time to get his message across, so he had to speak as fast as he could. However, he asked Tia why should why he should speak so loudly. This unnecessary and absurd shouting may enrage an already angry warden and lead to him to being beaten or thrown behind bars. Again, through experience, Mrs. Tia tells him that the place where they will meet Mustafa is very small room. It is not enough for 5 people to stand together and talk to the prisoners. The 10 of them would stand shoulder to shoulder and shout loudly at their prisoners. The prisoners will also line up in the same way on the other side. The distance between the visitors and the prisoners is as wide as a line road of four lanes. There will be nets and iron bars separating the prisoners from their visitors. Because of the nets, the visitors will not see the prisoners, nor will the prisoners see their visitors. Worst of all, there would be no lights inside that tomb-like dark room. So from both sides, visitors and prisoners have to shout out loud first their names to get to know each other and then exchange greetings and convey their messages as quickly as possible. That is why 20 people will scream at the same time. The great spy, Tia, also advised the so-called husband Hassan with another wisdom that one person from each group should speak and the remaining three people should stand behind them without saying a single word. This way only seven people will stand up and shout. For this purpose, Tia and Hassan are chosen because they are the two main conflicting leaders. All the above valuable information and wise instructions Hassan received from Tia while the two leaders were still standing near the small room. Suddenly, the door to the small visitors' room opened. The jailers appeared with their large clubs, dragging the 10 previous visitors and forcing them out of the little room. When the 10 previous visitors had been kicked out of the small room, the door slammed shut. The 10 new visitors were then told to be ready because the door would reopen in a few seconds. The 10 visitors will await the reopening of the door as if they are about to run a competitive race in the Olympics. They are standing and flexing their backs as if they were in the 100-meter race at the recent Olympic Games in Tokyo, Japan. Everyone wants to go in first and talk first. There is a technical problem that every visitor must face. He must be able to locate his prison inmate as quickly as possible by sound. Because of the dark room, the visitor and the detainee must use the sonic path method to locate each other. Then the visitors and the convict or suspect should move quickly and face each other for better and faster communication. Again, if they both try to move at the same time, they may find themselves just switching positions and standing back up in the wrong places. And if they were foolish enough and made a second attempt to right the wrongs, the 10 minutes would be up. In this case, the visitor would be expelled by the guards without speaking a word to his imprisoned relative, friend, or fellow gang member. But this would be more likely tolerable than if some visitors decided to shout at their prisoners from wherever they were standing. In this case, they will have to shout at the top of their voices across the small room. That is why the clever criminal Mr. Tia Kuku or the Shaitan advised the Pharisees, born son of Satan Hassan, to speak quickly and loudly. By the way, the big spy Tia is a criminal and the son of a notorious criminal. His biological father is Kuku the Shaitan and the dreadful devil Lucifer, who is currently serving a life sentence in Gadaref Central Prison. He is also the current leader of the bodyguards in the same prison. He was the one we met in the prison earlier in the barracks, hunted by demons, number 13. Moreover, he was the one who applied vigilante justice and ripped the ears of the charlatan and rapist of the fairest innocent girl Muna, the great witch doctor Haj Muhammad, and made the evil old man Osman al-Taib a lame for life, and he who bound, starved, beat, and raped to death the second innocent girl, the late underage girl Firdos. At 5:07 p.m., the door of the visitor's room was suddenly opened from the inside. This means that the allotted 10 minutes have just begun, and the countdown has also begun. The 10 new visitors, at the speed of light, ran toward the door, One of Tia's spies fell on the way by a huge visitor. He is Jigger and is also known in the gang of spies as the Rat or the Big Mouse. He fell flat on his stomach and nose and was severely injured. The attacker didn't stop to apologize to Jigger or try to help the person she had brought down. She's a fat woman, but she has a man's body. No one else has ever stopped or cared about the big mouse, Mr. Jigger. Even the jailers did not stop and were not disturbed by the fallen visitors. All nine other visitors arrived at the door at the same time. Here they ran into another serious problem for each of them. The small door of the narrow room only allowed one person to enter, so only one visitor among the nine could successfully pass through the narrow wicket gate. 3 minutes were wasted bullying, shoving, and pushing each other. Somehow, by hook or by crook, the nine visitors managed to get themselves two at a time through the small door. Once the visitors entered the small room, they were surprised to find that there were no lights. The great spy, Mr. Tia, forgot to mention this problem to the alleged husband of Intisar, Hassan. Therefore, there is no way of trying to identify which suspect or a convict each visitor came to see. This is why the visitors applied the bat method to locate their prisoners. So everyone started shouting as if he was a bat or a abu regea at the top of his or her voice in the name of the prison inmate who came to visit him. Unfortunately, all the visitors and prisoners discovered that they were standing in the wrong positions. Due to Tia's wise advice, there are only 7 visitors standing side by side in a row. Nasser stands behind Tia, while Jagger is still lying unconscious outside. And Mr. Fattah stands behind Hassan, but this also did not reduce the loud scream. Among the 7 visitors, unfortunately, there are 3 females who are screaming in loud voices. The eldest of these 3 women is the female who overthrew the spy Jigger, expelling him from the cutthroat competition. Of the 4 men, Hassan and Tia stand together. Unfortunately, they discovered that they were standing in the wrong place. Where the detainee Mustafa Osman al-Taib stands, there happens to be a fat woman who speaks loudly. The woman's imprisoned husband, whom she has come to visit, is also on the other end. The detained husband is also a man with a big mouth and a big voice and body. The couple started shouting at each other in louder voices like microphones. The last 2 women also raised their voices to the limit. They screamed like African American robbers. Each woman tries to conquer the other 2 women. So in the dark room, there is intense competition. The other 2 visitors also entered the competition but were inferior to the woman. Their low voices reached the competition low. Layla. Mustafa tried hard to communicate something, but he couldn't. In this way, the other 2 minutes were wasted. The main problem is that Mustafa, the son of the rich man, is not used to such a method of communication. Hassan also wasted 2 minutes trying to deny Tia's report. Time is over. Immediately, the enraged guards with long clubs in their hands rushed in and began to kick the 9 visitors out of the small, dark room. The super spy Tia and Intisar's alleged lawful husband try to resist but are beaten and threatened by the jailers and told that they will be thrown behind bars if they don't leave the visitors' room. Then they were forcefully removed from the small room. It is only then that the gang leader Tia and his second spy, the ugly vulture, Kling Abu Salah, discovered that their fellow spy, the scary big rat Jigir, has been assaulted and half dead body has fallen into the hot sun in front of the darkened visitor's room as if he's burning in hell. Somehow they revive him and help him to get back on his feet. Chief Tia tried to complain to the guards and sue the huge visiting woman who knocked down and grievously injured his dear friend Mr. Jiggle Samula. The guards dismissed his complaint and told him that they were jailers and that their only duty was to guard the prisoners and not take complaints from visitors. And if he still had any objection, he should go to hell or stick his middle finger up his filthy ass and fuck himself. When the two feuding leaders got out of prison, they began to quarrel again about their next move. We'll have to wait another week to visit him again, Mr. Tia said. Impossible, Hassan shouts angrily. We couldn't figure out what Mustafa wanted to tell us. We are not likely to know even if we visited him 10 times. Mustafa was speaking in a soft voice like a spoiled teenage girl. Excuse me, guys, said Mr. Fattah Karar. This is not the right time to disagree. We gave Mustafa his chance. Now we must go to his imprisoned father, Mr. Osman Taib, in Khartoum prison. Moreover, we can take the opportunity to visit the chief of adulterer, my ex-boss, Mr. Mahjoub al-Hilali. The grand spite Tia was to object to the proposal, but his two Zaks, Jigir and Nisir, asked him to agree to Hassan and Fattah's idea. After that, the five men left the prison and went straight to the bus station and booked their tickets to Khartoum City. The flight is scheduled to start at 6 a.m. the next day. Everyone spent the rest of the day in a cheap motel in Kassala City. In the evening, on the advice of Mr. Tia, all five men went to a brothel house in Al Dresa locality of Kassala City, drank homemade bitter liquor, committed adultery, and spent most of the time of the night in the company of two prostitutes. The three spies simultaneously had sex with the same Abyssinians or assumed Christian prostitute called Ababa, and together the alleged legal husband of the disobedient runaway Muslim wife Intisar and the man of wonders, the notorious womanizer Fattah Karar, shared the pussy of the other prostitute, an Eritrean Muslim woman named Fatma. When they got back to their cheap motel in the wee hours of the morning, they were all dead drunk and slept like cavemen. Chapter 66. Visiting the innocent criminal in Khartoum prison. Early the next day, the five criminal men rose from their alcoholic stupor like zombies, came out of their graves, and boarded the bus at 6 in the morning and headed for the city of Khartoum. They They all feel sleepy, so most of the 8 hours were spent sleeping, snoring, and disturbing the other passengers. Hassan and Fattah occupied two chairs and sleep together. Jigger and Nisr are sitting behind them, and they are both sleeping on each other's shoulders. Only Chief Tia is sitting near a stranger. The stranger is having a hard time with the passengers next to him. Now and then the large passenger's head kept falling asleep on his shoulder. When such an unpleasant situation occurs, the stranger has to shout loudly to his neighbor to get up and remove his big head from his shoulder. Each time the tiny head of the small stranger was pressed hard against the solid iron window of the bus. Whenever he is exposed to such a painful experience, the stranger feels as if he is stuck between two solid, recti buildings, sweating, breathing hard, then screaming for his precious life, afraid of dying in the stampede. Moreover, Mr. T is the Wherefore, Mr. T is the only one who didn't enjoy a restful sleep. At 2:15 p.m., the bus reached its final destination. From the bus station, Chief Tia suggested that they have their lunch before going to Kobar Center prison. Hassan accepted the proposal and invited the group to lunch in a small hut at the bus station at his own expense. In fact, the thief Hassan uses the money of the imprisoned evil old man, but he falsely claims that he is a generous man and spends on the group of spies and ducks from his own bucket and account. While lunch was not yet served, the alleged husband of Intisar had a clever idea and decided to put it into practice. Then he called one of the restaurant servants and I started talking to him. What is your name, good boy? Hassan asked. My name is James, the server replies. James, do you want to make easy money? Yes, sir, but nowadays money does not come easily. We have to sweat and fight for it. If you provide me with four good boys like you, I will give each one of you a few pennies in cash without doing any work for me. What kind of work do you want us to do for you? I said you wouldn't do any work for me. Then you must be either a monk or a madman. These are the only two types of people who unwisely dispose of their money without expecting anything in return. James, I'm not one of those fools. I'm just an ordinary person. In that case, good sir, you must be an alien who landed from another planet or a different galaxy. People on this damning planet Earth never give away their money. I'm not an alien from space, nor a ghost from hell, nor even a demon or a zombie apocalypse that has risen from his grave. I'm an ordinary person like you, as I did tell you. I just want four good citizens like you to accompany us on a visit. To visit anywhere, Cobra Central Prison. Listen, sir, I would rather accompany you to hell, but not to jail. I'm not a criminal. I don't, and I do not want to associate myself with criminals. Listen, James, I don't want you to do any criminal thing for me. You will simply stand with us in the visiting room. We are going to visit someone at Cobra Center Prison. At least the person you are going to visit is a criminal. Otherwise, how did he land in the notorious jail Cobra prison? He's an innocent criminal. How can he be a criminal and an innocent at the same time? It is like telling me that Satan was an innocent angel and that God unjustly expelled him from heaven and would finally cast him into the lake of fire. You talk too much, Mr. James. Are you the son of a church priest? I'm not the son of a priest. I'm a Christian by name, but an apostate Christian. I don't go to church. I don't read the gospel of Jesus Christ in the Holy Bible, which you Muslim call Injil Isa. Well, James, I will first try to make myself more clear to you. What I meant to say is that the person we are going to visit in prison is falsely accused by some people of kidnapping, raping, and murdering his lawful first Muslim wife. Why is he accused of that if he is her husband? You must justify that to me. Listen, Mr. James, you cannot ask me all these questions as if you are a police interrogator and I am a suspect. If you need easy money, then trust me and bring four of your good friends with you and come with us. Do you want us to be your bodyguards? I don't need any bodyguards. I already have three spies who guard me too. Then why do you want us if you have other three bad guys with you? We want you to form a crowd with us. That is all we need from you. What kind of crowd? We'll visit a very dear person. He is in jail. We want to ask him about something particularly important questions. Unfortunately, the small visitors' room will be very noisy when we have five other visitors with us. We don't want anyone to be with us while we talk to our imprisoned friend. Your duty is to stand there without saying or doing anything. What will happen after we visit that innocent criminal? We have nothing to do. You have nothing to do with us after that. Is that all, sir? Yes, James. This is will be the end of your mission. Then the newly appointed boy left and returned shortly after with two waiters and two sweepers. All four of the fresh guys look the same as the Chinese. No one would suspect that if they claim that they were born in parents as quadruplets on the same day and at the same time. The alleged legitimate Muslim husband, claiming to be the spouse of the disobedient wife, the fugitive Intisar, from the rule of obedience, stood at his feet and received them warmly. The leader of the gang of spies, Mr. Tia Koko, the devil's son, was astonished to see the four newly appointed young men. He concludes that Hassan wants to bypass them by recruiting five new spies. So he got up from his chair, approached Hassan, and shouted loudly, "Have you not yet learned from the mistake of the foolish gang leader Abu Shahur del Kalib? How can you repeat the same mistake by hearing these stupid servants? Respect yourself and be held accountable. Ya Zol, oh bad man," James shouted angrily. "Have I spoken to you, stupid slave? I'm a server in a restaurant, and I am proud of that. After all, it is better to be a servant in a restaurant than a bodyguard and friend to a criminal imprisoned in the notorious Cobalt Jail." When James spoke these courageous words, Mr. Tia grabbed his shirt and lifted him off the floor like a small stool. He would have hit his little head against the wall as if breaking an egg, if not for Hassan, who intervened in time and saved the life of the wise James. "Stop, Mr. Tia," Hassan shouted. "You will kill an innocent restaurant server. This boy is not a spy or a gangster like you. He is just a diligent servant in his service. Please put him down and listen to me." The words of the alleged husband of Intisar calmed the great spy. Then he put James where he was before. The servant felt as if he had been rescued from the mouth of a lion just in time. "I have only asked these five gentlemen to accompany us on our visit to Cobra prison. Why should they accompany us? To form a crowd. What kind of a crowd? Are we going to riot or a fight? Mr. Tia, you know what happened to us in the small, dark visitors' room in Castle prison. In order not to repeat the same problem again, I decided to take these good boys with us. I want them to form a group of 10 visitors with us. Not a bad idea, but they must leave as soon as their mission is done. Yes, after that, we have nothing to do with them. Can we know their names? My name is James, and this is Peter, and this is John, and this is George, and this is Paula. Mocking the fact that none of you have a good Arabic name, Mr. Tia asked sarcastically. "We don't like to have Arabic names because we are not Arabs. Who told you that just a name will make you an Arab? Even if you give me all the treasures of the world, I would not like to be an Arab. Look at these ugly black creatures. Mr. Tia, would you please respect yourself and try to speak to me as a good citizen? You are a black slave, an uncircumcised Christian infidel from the south of Sudan. I'm better than you because I do not deny my African origin," James says angrily. "You claim that you are an Arab and that you are an African black man like me." The servant continues bravely. It is a contradictory claim because no one can be an Arab man and a black African man at the same time. It is like saying that I have a black and white girlfriend, James widely says. If you don't shut up, I will your cut out your tongue. The grand spy Tia Coco shouts angrily when he is unable to match or laugh at the wisdom of the brave servant James. As a matter of fact, Mr. Tia is Sudanese, ethnically from the Nuba Mountains, and claims to be an Arab Muslim, while James and his four friends are of African descent from South Sudan. Please, Mr. Tia, intervenes Hassan. Stop this unnecessary argument. Although Hassan managed to end the intense argument between Tia and James, the two continued to stare at each other like a dog and a cat. All this time, the notorious womanizer of Attack Karar had doubts about the five servants. Somehow his sixth sexual sense told him that there was a female among them, but he could not tell which of them was a girl. Wait a minute, the Wonder Man shouted. My sixth sense has revealed to me that something isn't quite right about these five guys. Please, Mr. Fattah, Hassan says impatiently. Don't start another unnecessary argument about them. They are all good boys who agreed to help us. James follows Ma Wonder Man. Are you all boys or is there a girl in boy clothes among you? What a silly question to ask. Of course, they are all males, Hassan says angrily, and they look and speak like boys. James, are you going to tell me the truth? Are you all boys? The Wonder Man insisted on knowing the truth. James angrily says, we are all boys except for one, but none of us will tell you which one of us is female. Is Paul a him or a her? Does she have a dick or a pussy? Hassan says, of course, Bola is a man like you and me. No, let James answer my question, says the sexual predator. James says seriously and angrily that Bola is female and also is a sissy and tomboy. She's a girl who displays traits and behaviors that are typical of a boy. She talks like a boy, smokes like a boy, whistles like a boy, fights like a boy, and sleeps with boys like a man. If you want to verify what I said, Miss Paula can fuck you right now in front of everyone and in broad daylight. I am I volunteer, the Wonder Man says happily. Can you fuck me, Miss Paula? Yes, I can. I can, said the Wonder Girl. But you have to pay for it. You fuck me and I have to pay you money for it? Yes, of course. This is the rule of the game. Who made that unfair rule? When you have sex with a prostitute, do you pay her or does she pay you? Of course, I have to pay her because she has a pussy and I have a dick. The same rule applies here. I fuck you with my pussy and you have to pay for the cunt you use for your pleasure. Fair, fair, a real deal. If you don't want to pay me, then go fuck your mom or fuck your sister or you can fuck your hand through masturbation. Paula, stop talking about incest, incest and masturbation because I don't like both of them. I would love to have sex with an adventurous girl like you. Then you have to pay me when you insert your dick in my pussy. Now tell me, Miss Paula, suppose if you had sex with a boy and he refused to pay you, what can you do in such intercourse with you? I'm not a stupid or a naive person like you. I asked the boy to pay me before I fuck him to date with my camel or a can in his dick in his cock. Well, my dear Paula, I'm willing to pay you an, an advance, but you have to fuck me till I die. Yes, that is what I can do. If you pay well, I will fuck you to death. When Wonder Man and Wonder Girl spoke these funny last words, and struck a fair and practical sex deal between them. Everyone cried out with laughter. At the same time, the wonder girl Paula fell in love with the sexual predator Fattah at first sight. The other four could not recognize Paula by her female name because they were all born Muslims and none of them had ever heard of that name. The four understood that the worshipper of woman is a man of wonders, as he claimed to have a sixth sexual sense that helped him discover a female even if she is the only one among the hundreds of animals and the thousands of male birds. The 10 visitors then boarded a bus and traveled to Kobar Central Prison. Hassan filed out visitor forms and asked his men to register. Only Tia, Fattah, and Hassan were able to register their name, while the remaining seven visitors used their thumbs as fingerprints instead of their signature. They are all illiterate, unable to read or write. The remaining time was spent under the shade of a large tree. At 4:55 p.m., one of the jailers came out with his list and invited the first 10 visitors to follow him. The first visitor happened to be Hassan and Tia and their two groups. The 10 visitors marched in a single column like soldiers in their parade and entered the visitors' room. The visiting room in Kobar prison has better facilities than that in Kassala prison. There are bright lights and enough space. There's a long bench big enough to comfortably accommodate 10 visitors. Even prisoners have benches to sit on. Furthermore, visitors are allowed to spend a maximum of 20 minutes inside the room. When the 10 visitors entered, they found that the condemned convict, Osman al Taib, had already sat on the seat across from them, waiting for them. His angry and frightening face appeared to them like the cursed devil. He has lost a lot of weight and meat in a short time, as if he is neither eating nor sleeping. How are you, Uncle Usman? Hassan inquires. I'm fine, but your adulterous political father, who is in prison under investigation, is not well. The old man replies. What happened to Mr. Mahjoub al Hilali? Asked the man of wonders. Another angry inmate severely beat him. Fine, but why did this angry criminal beat up my innocent father? Because your father has sex with his adulterous wife. Some rumors circulating among the prisoners in this damning prison say that your adulterous father, Mahjoub al Hilali, raped the beautiful wife, Raja, when her husband, the soldier Abbas, was not at home. But the newspapers reported that the soldier's wife willingly committed adultery with my father. Whether you call it adultery or rape, it is a forbidden act in Islam. Your father is now in the intensive care unit, and no one knows if he will live or die. So he too becomes another victim of Eve. This is why I believe that a woman is the devil created in human form. Wonder Man uttered those misogynistic words. Stop this nonsense talk and tell me, guys, why did you come to me? Uncle Osman, we have come to seek your advice and guidance regarding a difficult problem we are facing. Did you find your runaway Muslim wife, or did she get married and run away with my useless son Sami? I haven't found her yet, and it is not likely that I will find her. Mr. Tia and his two spies have been deceived by your son Sami. He pretended to be a crazy lover like Case, who became mad for his love for Layla, and they believed him and stopped following him. How can you do that again? That poor bitch Intisar tricked you before I ran away, and now you repeated the same mistake with my evil son. I just wasted my money on hiring useless guys like you. Respected Sir Osman Al Tayyib, says Tia seriously. I've been working in this field for 20 years. I make my living from pawnage, and kidnapping. No one can deceive me in this matter. I regret to tell you that your son has really lost his mind. He has become a banana, a cuckoo, a lunatic, a drunkard, ad- an adulterer, a religious fanatic, a terrorist, an apostate Muslim, a Christian infidel, and fit for chains. In clear and ambiguous language, Sami Usman Tayyip became insane and madman. His love story with Intisar ended like the sad story of Qais and Layla. I wish it had successful conclusion, like the love tale of Antar and Abla. This is why I don't like to waste your money following a crazy lover. What made you come to this conclusion? I know that my son Sami is very smart and a university graduate. I don't think such an intelligent and educated son could lose his mind. Good sir, you say that because you have never fallen in love with a woman. I don't blame you because you are an old man now. In the old days, when you were young, there was no love. Who told you that in the days of my youth there was no love? Did we have hearts of stone? We used to fall in love with even stronger, deeper, and more sincere than today's superficial and lustful love. But we did not fall in love with unmarried girls. Islamic law didn't allow us to fall in love with Islamic law did not allow us to fall in love with our wives until after marriage. But this kind of love does not make a person crazy. It only increases his blood pressures. I'm talking about the love of Romeo and Juliet and Case and Layla. Simply put, I'm talking about the love between a man and a woman before marriage. Now stop lecturing me on love and tell me what made you conclude that my son Sami had become a mad boy. His antics, sir. Now tell me what you call a person who was once in the brothel and tavern of a liquor seller and an ugly prostitute who looked like Grantina or a hippopotamus, drinking liquor as drinking water, and committed adultery with the ugliest hooker ever. And the next day he prays at 4 in the morning in the mosque and sits at the feet of the virtuous Imam of God's house. Then he was severely attacked by the devotees, and then threw and they threw his half-dead body inside a dirty dumpster. After spending more than an hour inside that garbage container, he emerged like a bruised zombie coming out of his grave and headed straight to the Al Taisir bus and traveled to Khartoum city. From the bus station, he walked for many hours until he reached the Blue Nile River, where he attempted suicide, but was rescued by two swimmers. When they brought him out, his clothes were tattered and dirty, and he looked more miserable than a beggar. From the waters of the river, he went to the largest mosque in Khartoum city to pray, but instead entered a Christian church to pray. Only a madman could do all these terrible things, says the old geezer. This is your son, Sami Sayer. He has become worse than the crazy lover case. If he had not died by now, he would either be in prison or converted to Christianity and become an apostate infidel. That is why we decided not to waste your money by following such a crazy guy. Well done, Mr. Tia. However, I want to know what happened to my son after that. Well done, Mr. Tia. However, I want to know what happened to my son after that. As I told you, sir, if he did not kill himself now, he would be in a prison cell or a chained inside a cell in a mental hospital. My beloved Sami has gone mad because of that poor, dirty whore. Do you mean to say, Uncle Osman, because of my disobedient Muslim wife Intisar? Hassan says angrily. If she was your rebellious Muslim wife, why didn't you grab her and beat her with your stick and fuck her untamed pussy with your dick. What husband in the world would allow his lawful wife to move freely with another man? Even a pimp who sells women to other men or a homosexual who practices sodomy with another man does not consent to this being done to his lawful Muslim wife. I will find her and I will certainly punish her with a long whip and fuck her pussy with my big dick. Listen to you, I cannot believe my son has become a weird lover like case. It is just another trick devised by that evil lawyer, Salah. He can fool the entire world, but not me. He cheated on you before and made that bitch run away. My elder son Mustafa and the foolish spy Abu Shakhura and his men were also imprisoned. Even your adulterous father and the rapist Haj Muhammad and I went to prison because of him. And you and Hassan will be thrown into this filthy jail very soon if you are not careful. So don't believe his tricks anymore. I know that my Muslim son Sami will never enter the Christian church, leave Islam, convert to Christianity, and become an apostate, infidel, even if he goes mad. I'm sure he is now in the arms of that dirty bitch Intisar. I'm fucking her in her big pussy and dirty ass day and night. So you must keep looking for her everywhere until you find her. Well, sir, we will resume our search. In what city did you see him enter the church of the infidels? In this city, sir. Then you need to start looking for them in this city. Who knows now? Maybe the two adulterers had already obtained passports and visas and fled the country and landed in a western country of the infidels. Listen, Hassan, I have a friend who works at the passport office. His name Hatim Waddal Khatim, and he's a senior police officer. Go to him and show him your marriage contract and the verdict of obedience issued by the Sharia court judge. Tell him that your legal Muslim wife has eloped with another bad man. Let him find out first whether or not she has already obtained a passport. If she is not, then tell him that the wealthy business magnate in the city of Gadarif, Mr. Osman Taib, wants you to put her name on the blacklist. If she comes to get a passport, he should arrest her and then inform you. You know what to do to her when you get your hand on her. Of course, Uncle Osman, I will do for her what you told me to do. Then go meet him and tell him to blacklist her entire name. But if your friend, the senior police officer, Hatim Waddal Khatim, asks me, where is Mr. Osman al Taib now? What do I tell him? Tell him he is sick and bedridden in the Sobo hospital. Never let him know that I am in this damned prison for notorious criminals and crooks. He knows me as a good citizen. This is a clever idea, Uncle Osman. But don't take these ugly spies with you. As I tell you, he knows me as a pious Muslim man, a pious and generous man of prayer who built the largest mosque in the city of Gadarif. He does not know me that sometimes I become cursed and more dangerous than the accursed Satan himself. Otherwise, if he sees those ugly faces of those criminal zucks or black slaves of Nuba Mountains, Darfurians, and Southerns with you, he will suspect the whole thing. What about those ugly spies? Do you think we need them anymore? Yes, of course, we need them now more than ever. When the Olma renewed his approval of the so-called ugly faces of the black slaves, he began to count their number. Then he smiled exactly and said, 10 is a good number. We need each and every one of you. Of course, I will describe what should he be your work all at once. Tia and one of his spies must go to Khartoum International Airport and search there for the disobedient wife Intisar and her damned man Sami, the son of a bitch. The other two must look for them in all the motels and hotels in town. You and Fatah Karar should go to all the restaurants in the evening, and in the day you should visit the zoo. The other two must search all the parks, sightseeing attractions, and riverbanks along Nile Street. The remaining two must hang around the cinemas. Today, Wednesday, next Monday, I want you all to meet me at the criminal court in Khartoum, Bahri, and report on the results of the meticulous searches that you have conducted. I will come there for the final hearing of the trial of my late first legal wife, Firdaus, in which I was falsely accused of kidnapping, raping, and killing her. But excuse me, Mr. Osman Al Taib, Chief Tia shouted with great anger. These black Africans, the five stupid slaves, those Negroes are not spies. They're just useless southern servants and sweepers. None of them know the meaning of the word spy. It doesn't matter if they know about spionage or not. No one of you was born from the black hairy pussy of his slave mother a spy. You are the leader of the group of spies, and therefore you can train them. But good Uncle Osman, Hassan says anxiously, these five newcomers are not criminals. They are good citizens like you and me. What do you mean by saying that, my son, Hassan? If someone helps you find your lawful, disobedient Muslim wife who runs away from you without excuse, does this mean that he's doing a criminal act? But my uncle, if these five Southerners refuse to collaborate with us, what should we do? How do they refuse? So why did they come here? Did they come here to look at me? Am I an ugly monkey like them in a cage at zoo? Dangerous boss Tia, Kuku, the leader of the Black Devils, will make sure that they have to do the work you have given them, whether they like it or not. Can you hear me for a moment, innocent criminal? The white servant James asked angrily. But before the good citizen James could express his objection, the jailers grabbed his hands and dragged him out of the room with the rest of the visitors. Outside the Cobra prison building, servant James and his four southern sweeping friends raised their objection but are severely reprimanded and corrected by the dangerous criminal boss Tia on the grounds that no one can get in the business of spionage and quit. It is a road of no return. According to that unjust and criminal decision of the imprisoned evil old man, James, John, Peter, George, and Paula are transformed from being innocent restaurant servants into spies and thugs by force. In order to control them and never let them escape, Chief Tia suggested to the alleged husband of Intisar that every new spy should accompany our old spy. The selfish rejected lover Hassan liked the idea and took the good citizen James with him instead of the notorious womanizer Fattah, the Wonder Man. The chief of spies further suggested that if the police officer Hatib Abdel Khatim inquired at the passport office in Khartoum about the ugly slave James, Hassan should tell him that he was his servant. The only thing James needs to be the waiter of the restaurant is to wash his dirty body with Phoenician soap and rough loafers. He must be both new, clean clothes and his torn and dirty uniform must be replaced. Bullies by Tia took Sweeper John with him. The other two sweepers, Peter and George, and the waitress Paula, were distributed to Nasser, Jigger, and Fattah, respectfully. The two new lovers are the fairest couple to walk hand in hand and disappear into the crowded streets of the triangular metropolis. Although there is nothing about Wonder Girl Paula that would categorize her as a female, Wonder Man, the sex maniac Fatah Karar, still loves and craves between her legs and her big buttocks and feels that those openings are more than enough for a womanizer and sexual predator like himself. The other four groups also headed in four different directions in search of the desperately wanted Christian couple in love, namely Disobedient Wife, the fugitive from justice, Al Habiba Al Jamila Intisar, and her handsome mad lover, Al Habib Al Walhan Sami. Chapter 67. The first wedding night of the newly married Christian lovers. On the first day of the honeymoon, the beautiful bride Intisar entered the hotel followed by her handsome groom Sami. All the guests in the spacious hall are looking at the beautiful bride. Every man wished to be the lucky groom, and his erected phallus became a Ramadan cannon inside his jalabiya, while every woman envied the bride for her amazing beauty and wished her deflowered cunt to be as her virgin pussy. With pride and dignity, the newly married couple checked in and received the key to their room a lovely reception from a lovely reception girl. Then they went upstairs. At the door of the room, the groom raised his bride, took her in his arms, and entered the room. The beloved Intisar felt ashamed and covered her face with both hands. Then her lover Sami gently placed her sexy body on the big bed and sat next to her. The beautiful bride, still shy, did not open her eyes and look at her handsome groom. Her lover understood the reason for her shyness. Then the groom pulled out the cassette tape that the beautiful Coptic girl Suzanne had given them as one of the many wedding gifts. Then inserted it into the recorder. The sweet voice of the Egyptian singer Kulthum, which is known as Kawkab al-Sharq, started singing, "This is my night and the dream of my life, between the past and the coming. Fans, you are all an inspirations. Fill the cup with love and give it." Then the groom took off his shirt and hung it on a chair. After that, he came and sat near to his heart's desire. He grabbed her hands and tried to remove them from her face. The bride resisted him, and her face was sufficiently covered. He approached her face and kissed her on the forehead. He turned She turned in the other direction. Then he put his hand on her long hair and started to slowly move it down. His hand slowly moved from her hair to her shoulders and reached her narrow waist. Then he took off his shoes and put his legs on the bed. His hand resumed its gradual journey downward until it reached the big buttocks, and there it rested for a while. No reaction yet from the introverted girl. The hand started moving from side to side on the big ass of the shy bride, but it stayed at the same level. The groom started to feel the effect of his touch. Then he moved his body down and slowly extended it close to the body of his bride. He put his hands around her body and hugged her. He placed his right hand on her stomach and began to slowly move it upwards. The hand continued to climb by degrees until it reached its search target. There he held the left breast of his bride, similar to a pomegranate. The shy bride started to show a slight response. The groom's hand continued to caress the big breast for a while, then moved to the other breast. Sam started to feel the power of making love. So he braced his body against the delicate and soft body of Intisar. From the top of his head to the bottom of his feet, he felt the sexy body of his beloved bride. Surprisingly, she has not yet responded to him. The groom became anxious. That was why he started whispering some words of love into her ear. Despite the emotional words of love, the bride did not respond or react. The groom's heart began to climb higher than her light breasts until it reached her soft cheeks. It wandered from her cheeks in search of her sweet lips. His attempt to reach her wet lips was unsuccessful as they were still protected by her hands. When she blocked his hand with hers, he returned to her breasts. At least this sensitive area of the big boobs is not protected. The hand continued to caress the young breasts of his beautiful bride. The groom knows that her sexy breasts are completely hidden under her wedding dress and bra. While making this exciting first exploration of his lover's hidden beauty parts, the lover started rubbing his dick on her big ass. He is now sexually aroused and ready to make love. But what about her? It seemed that she decided not to show any response. An idea entered the lover's mind and he decided to put it into practice. He left her breasts and he pulled his body away from her back. Intisar felt her liberation from his sexy touch. Before she could tell his next move, she felt his hand touch her again. This time she loved her more because something more amazing was coming. Then he put his hand on her wedding dress and caught the zipper and slowly moved it down. His his hand is trembling as if he is trying to steal something he had no right to touch and own. He breathed loudly as he started to see her beautiful naked body starting to gradually reveal her inner charms from neck to waist. Her dress had completely unzipped. The beautiful and sexy bride didn't even try to stop him from taking off her clothes and enjoying her virginity. He is her holy Christian bridegroom, and she is his virgin Christian bride, and she believes that everything in her is his. Even if he wanted to do it with her all night long, she wouldn't stop him. She had waited so long for this special wedding night to come, and it had finally arrived. The sexy bride started to feel his hand roaming from shoulder to shoulder. Then she felt him gently massaging her bare back. She loves what her groom does to her delicate body, enjoys it, and wants more and more of it. After those sexy touches that made her private parts wet, she felt the hand climb back up to her shoulders, but it used the shoulders as a stepping stone to reach the other side. His hand grabbed one of her bare breasts. This gave her an amazing sense of sexual pleasure. His hand began to fondle her navels very gently. Vibrations swept through her entire young body like an electric current and gave her a powerful sexual stimulation. She is now excited and ready. So she slowly moved her body back until she touched his. The groom felt very good when his attractive bride started showing a sexual response. Then he braced his body against hers. As he pushed his body, the groom began to feel the bride's soft body begin to sway back, up, and sideways. Her body movements gave her lover indescribable pleasure. He put his lips to her ear and started to whisper a few words to her. I love you so much, my sweetie Intisar. You are so beautiful tonight. I love your eyes, your cheeks, your nose, your hair, your hands, your shoulders, your lips, your breasts, and your whole body. You are so sweet and sexy. She does not respond to his words. He realizes that she is still too shy to talk to him because she knows what they are going to do on this special night. His passionate words revealed his intense sexual desire for her. Sam stopped whispering in her ear and tried to take off her wedding dress completely, but he couldn't. Her hands still covered her face. He was buying it again. He knows the physical pleasure that he feels like climbing upstairs. When he reaches one stage, he wants to go up to a higher stage. He cannot go back even if he wanted to. But at every step he's humbled by her shyness. He decided to do something about it. Another great idea entered his mind. He raised his hand and pulled his body. Her body movements immediately stopped. Sammy looked for a while at her beautiful back lying in front of him. He saw her bare shoulders and back. He brushed her again and kissed her shoulder. No response. Her neck, no reaction. Then her back. Nothing happened either. The sexually aroused groom sat on the bed and kept looking at her sexy legs. He saw that they were plump and shining like gold, and at their upper end were light buttocks. They they have color of mango yellow and bright white. They were built along the bed. They are pretty and sexy, but they are covered up with her long, sheer white wedding dress. The lover understood that his beloved's sexy legs were not guarded by her hands. Wherefore he reached out his right hand and grabbed her wedding dress and slowly began to roll it up. It is like opening a hidden treasure of gold. Then the groom stopped and took off his bride's shoes. Their high heels. Her feet are the fairest parts that reveal themselves to him. They are beautiful and charming. He continued to discover the inner charm of his lover. Never before had he attempted to uncover those hidden treasures, which were left for him and him alone to discover and possess. The white translucent dress gradually began to reveal her legs. Her right leg rests on her left leg. Sam stopped his journey to the top and kissed her feet. Kissing them does not satisfy him now. Then he blessed his hand and felt their softness. He was instantly stimulated by an undescribable erotic desire for the sexy body of his beautiful bride. He saw the shy girl begin to move under his hand. She does not use one of her hands to stop him from the upward flight. She knows where his hand is going and where it will land. This is where the journey must end and their happiness can reach its sexual climax. Sammy hasn't, hasn't spent much time on her feet because he also longs for a higher discovery. Then he pulled the dress a little higher. The sexy thighs are starting to reveal their charms. Her fully exposed thighs caused his hand to shake again. When the thighs were fully discovered, he let go of the dress and looked at his sweetheart's inner charm. This exciting sight may have satisfied him before, but not on this special night. This is the night he waited for so long and fought his rival, the selfish Hassan, and his conspirators. He has sent all the bad guys to jail except for the alleged legal Muslim husband. Sami tried to commit suicide in the waters of the Blue Nile because of his strong love for Intisar. Finally, after a hard effort, he won and married her, and she became his life partner. Then the groom put his hands down and began to feel her thighs. The reflection of the bright light on her thighs showed them to him as if they were made of pure gold. Their Her, there her hips full and rich. Sexual touches give him a wonderful and new experience that he has never experienced with any other young woman in his life. To express his joy with the overwhelming happiness he now feels in his heart, the groom once again put his lips on the ear of his beloved and started whispering to her, "My beautiful bride, you have a sexy body. You are so beautiful. I didn't know you had such sexy legs, thighs, and hips. That made me feel excited. You made me feel so sexy about you today." When Intisar did not stop him and did not respond to his sexual words full of a strong sexual desire, Sammy picked up the dress again and was about to take it off and reveal her small underwear. But he got scared and stopped. His heart began to beat faster and louder. His hands are trembling and his face is sweating. Fear fills his heart. He does not know where these sudden negative feelings originated from. He silently asked himself, "Why I am now afraid? She is now his beloved and holy Christian bride, and he is her lover and lawful husband." He therefore concluded that the fear was not due to him trying to have sex with his bride, nor from some unknown reason, but due to the evil plot that led to their long and painful separation. He somehow ignored the fear and made his last move, pulling the dress up to her waist. The final stage of his discovery was successfully achieved. What he sees now, we cannot describe because it is personal, private, and confidential. Sammy quickly put his hand on it and started to feel it and enjoy touching her virgin pussy. Although the undergarment concealed it from him, he still enjoyed it immeasurably, and no human language could understand such a wonderful feeling. Her little red underwear, which is a swimsuit, doesn't cause him any problem because he prefers to see it covered. The sight of her little underwear sends him sexual excretions that make him soar, soar higher and faster in the sky of pleasure. His sexual desire increases in seconds and climbs to the highest peak. He felt like he might have a sudden, strong ejaculation of his semen at any moment. He understood that if such a sudden sexual explosion occurred to him and he reached his orgasm, he would be a selfish groom who had stimulated his pride and suddenly left her to reach orgasms on her own. He should help her reach a clitoral orgasm and vaginal orgasm, which is expressed in G spot. Sami had read books about women's orgasms in sex and had come to know that experts say a clitoral and vaginal orgasm is the most powerful phenomenon. It can be twice as powerful as an orgasm by itself. He decided to act quickly before it was too late. He began to reach behind her panties and touch her wet, naked cunt. Now and then his hand slipped under the undergarment and touched its moisture. She is a virgin, and she got really wet in that private part of her pussy. Touches in such a sensitive area finally caused the unresponsive girl to overcome her shyness and respond quick positively. Not only physically, but she began moaning. The sexy bride slowly spread her legs apart and waited. She felt her groom's hand now moving everywhere and touching everything. Sometimes she feels it on her legs, sometimes on her shoulders, sometimes on her breasts, caressing them and tickling her nipples, then on her thighs, buttocks, and under her underwear and on her virgin pussy. The final touch where The hand seems to be stuck forever, gives her the greatest sexual pleasure a girl can ever feel. Every moment she wants more of it. It is like a cup that gradually fills until it begins to overflow. The immense pleasure she feels in her virginal pussy has taken her to a level that has made her overcome her shyness. She finally lifted her hands from her face, turned her body over, and quickly hid her face in her lover's chest. The groom understood that his beloved bride now surrenders and is ready to offer her the sweetness and virginity. Then he pulled off her entire dress for her body and threw it on the floor. In his next step, he removed her bra. Her big breasts are now out in the open. He started fluttering with them. He also tickled their nipples and sucked them with his lips and tongue. He takes great pleasure in stroking the big boobs. They are like two bomb grenades. He cannot stop now. At the same time, the handsome lover is looking at his bride's beautiful, sexy body. Every part of it is naked except that private part is still hidden behind the little red lingerie or the bride's almayo, which hides it from view. Although he touched it and rubbed her private parts and fell wet several times, he still hadn't seen her pussy. Sammy undressed, then stopped touching it. That done, the handsome groom leaned over his naked, beautiful bride and kissed her forehead. What a pretty face she has! He had seen her face many times, but tonight he saw it in the light of a different time and place. Her eyes twinkle like the stars. She sucks her own lips. Her lips became wet. Her cheeks shimmered. It seemed that they produced some kind of fragrant liquid that made them shine even more. They glowed like a beacon. Every now and then her lips parted from each other and revealed her white teeth. He even Her even teeth locked together like a virgin feeling a slight pain. Her straight nose breathes softly and slightly in a loud voice. Her long black hair was loosely draped over her sexy body. There's, there are some drops of sweat on her forehead. Her lover could now hear and feel her heart beating. Her naked body spread the scent of Sudanese feminine perfumes, such as dilka, humra, Indian sandals, and some other foreign perfumes. Her hands and feet are decorated with black henna tattoos. She's an excellent example of a beautiful and perfect Sudanese bride. The groom now wonders from some time for some time what he should do to her next. Does he kiss her sweet lips, continue to caress her luscious body, or does he do both? He approached her lips, then whispered softly to her, I love you so much, Intisar. I love you too, Sammy whispered to him. When he heard her lips uttering those loving words, he pressed his lips to hers and began to kiss her. He kissed her many times before, but today it feels like he's kissing her for the first time. It is a strong, deep, and long kiss. It started with both lips and then moved to the lower lip. Finally, he caught her soft tongue and began to suck the honey from it. She pushed her tongue between his lips and let him suck on it. While he was sucking on her tongue, his left hand held her head, and his right hand quickly roamed all over her naked body. He could not rest in one part. It started with the hair and moved to the shoulders and went down to the waist, hips, ass, and slid from one buttock to the other and wandered in between. He very much enjoys the part that is divided up the two of them. Keep feeling those big buttocks. They are like two hills between a valley. Then his hand slips away from them, moves forward, hides under her underwear, and touches her virgin pussy. There he also stayed for a while, back up, but this time it changed direction. He started again with the legs and moved to the thighs and reached the midsection. His hand stayed there for a very long time. As he had done before, he continued to feel the wetness of her wet virgin pussy and massage it gently. But the groom is still afraid to take off his bride's tiny red underwear and make love to her. He is like a young teen who is inexperienced in sex and needs help in bed from his sexual partner. He has never had sex with a girl before. He is like his maiden bride. No matter how much the ugly prostitute Kaltumaya tried with his dead drunk body, which saturated with big quantity of her bitter homemade liquor, she could not sexually arouse him or have sex with his dick. His penis remained soft and cold as if it were not part of his intoxicated, lifeless body. Then the prostitute used his two middle fingers and masturbated her big pussy until she felt a slight kind of sexual satisfaction in her big, open, hairy cunt. So Sammy remained a virgin young man until today. Tonight, with his virgin beloved bride, he wants to reach the pinnacle of their happiness. Intisar has decided to take the final step. She also kept herself, despite her dire circumstances in Khartoum City, pure and virgin to her lover. Today, she is ready to offer her love, purity, and virginity to her lover. She fought human beasts and prevented them from raping her and taking away her virginity. She even defied law enforcement officers when they tried to kidnap her and transfer her to a selfish man who bought her against her will from her criminal half brother Omar, as if she were a sex slave or his half or his half-sister slave who was exposed naked in the slave market for sale at the time of Prophet Muhammad. But on this special day, for them as a beloved Christian bride lies in bed naked near her lover and whole groom on their first wedding night and is ready to give him what is his and his alone. Her lover enjoys her small mouth while his lips suck the honey from her sweet lips and soft tongue. She cannot wait any longer and is about to take off her little red panties by herself and climb on her boyfriend's body. She wants to feel his erect cock inside her virgin pussy and fucking her all night long. As her naked body generates such indescribable sexual pleasure and waits her virgin pussy, her mind suddenly begins to recall some memories of the past. She is tried she has tried so hard to get such memories out because the time isn't right for them. She knows if she lets them do that inside her mind, they might ruin the happiest night of her life. Despite her best efforts, they force themselves inside her being and cause her mind to examine them. The first memory was caused by the position of her lover's body. Half of his body was now resting on her sexy body. That situation reminded her of the fat human monster Wadalballa Jar Nabi. When she woke up in a panic from her deep sleep in the portal of the evil lady Bim, Mother Nafisa, she found that the obese beast man Bulbul was trying to rape her. He struggled to free herself from his huge, heavy body. His large mouth was producing a strong stench of alcohol, snuff, and bango. Also, his obese body generates a strong smell of sweat, as if he had not showered with soap and water for several weeks. Intisar knew that having sex with such a human beast would degrade her and lower her status to an animal, just like a very small doggy raped by a huge stray street dog, which has no known honor. Fortunately, before he could rape her, disgrade her holy body, and steal her virginity and purity, she grabbed his fat fingers and began to bite them with her sharp teeth with all her might. Her teeth sank deeply into his fleshy flesh until they hit the bone. Her sharp teeth caused him unbearable pain until his heavy body rolled off her body and landed like a wrecked old building hit by a powerful tornado. Then she jumped like a missile fell from the ground to the ground and fled for her virginity, her purity, and her life from the den of prostitutes and rapists. She preferred to spend her second night in the tombs among the dead than to sleep among the living human beasts in the brutal house of that evil woman, the Lady Bim Nafisa, the daughter of the dead Muslim saint Jabbar al Maksura. She slept on top of the grave of her late innocent sister Firdos until she was awakened by the scream of the frightened teenage girls who mistook her for a zombie girl rose up of her grave. The second memory that follows, of course, is that of the evil usurper, the lustful military major Al-Sanosni. He was too strong for her to overcome him because he was not as drunk as the fat beast man Bulbul. He was a well-trained soldier. He knew how to control his victim. She couldn't do anything to stop him from raping her and robbing her of her virginity. He treated her like a homeless street whore. He believed that she was a prostitute who had sex with her lover and became pregnant with an illegitimate child or a bastard baby before marriage, and that is why her angry Muslim father or her Arab brother wanted to slay her in an honor killing. Then she fled from the city of Al Gadarif and came to the capital city of Sudan and became a homeless girl without home and money. And in the end, she became a high profile whore in a brothel. It is like that somehow her Muslim father, members of her family, and Arab relatives learned of her hiding place in the brothel in Khartoum city. So they all came to kill her in the house of high ranking prostitutes, but she managed to escape from them. She ran barefoot until she survived from them by sheer coincidence when her feet brought her to the army mountain and she entered inside the forbidden military base. Then she lied to him with the false story about the verdict of obedience issued against her by the Sharia court in Gadarif city and her escape from her fictitious legal husband and the policeman. The lustful major thought he could keep her in his house and rape her every night and pay her a few Sudanese pounds of his good money for her sex as a cheap homeless whore. His ugly and skinny wife was nothing compared to her beauty and sexy body. Major Sanosny wanted to keep her in his house as a beautiful teenage concubine or Almisiar's secret wife, so that he could enjoy her tender body and young age for a long time. Therefore, he wanted to marry her secretly as a Muslim wife of Misyar in the same Islamic marriage that the Lady Bim, the Mother Nafisa, married her to the wealthy businessman Bulbul Waddal the neighbor of the Prophet. Perhaps he can also divorce his odious and skinny fairest Muslim wife and marry the beautiful whore instead of her, or makes her his second Muslim wife. He even considered the possibility of arranging the assassination of his ugly wife with poison or by paying a lot of money to a hired killer and then marrying the beautiful and sexy teenage girl that chance and good luck brought him. Tonight, the naked bride in Tisar remember what was then called the disobedient runaway Muslim wife, that fateful night when major when the major's large and huge phallus was trying to force itself violently at her small virgin vagina like a sword trying to split her body in two. It was also like a sharp knife cutting through her tender flesh like an innocent lamb being slaughtered by a butcher. Once she could not expel him from her body, she lost hope and began to weep for her purity and virginity. It would be She would be defiled and shattered forever in a few minutes. Although his cruel wife abused her and treated her like a worthless slave, Intisar still thanks her in her heart for saving her in the nick of time from her lustful husband's rape. What a painful experience for a young girl to be raped by those two despicable human beings. The obese rich man Bulbul Waddal Bella and the lustful soldier Major Sanosni. Her memories of the past stopped, and her mind was compelled to imagine her so-called legal Muslim husband Hassan Mahjoub al-Hilali in the place of her handsome Christian groom Sami. She imagined herself under his heavy body as he tried to rape her. No one could save her from being raped by him, even if she screamed the loudest shout in the world. His rape would have been legitimized and justified by law in the name of Islamic legal halal marriage. If the lawyer Salah had not helped her escape from while she was disguised as a handsome boy, the policeman would have broken into her house the next morning, arrest her, and taken her to the house of obedience by force. He was going to rape her and enslave her forever. She imagined him trying to kiss her. She turns her face in all directions and hides her lips inside her mouth. He will exercise his physical superiority as a male and force his erect penis into her virgin vagina, tearing and defiling her. Tears began to run down her cheeks when she imagined that he had raped her, taken away her virginity, and discredited her holy body. It would not be for a month, but for the rest of her life. She will become his sex slave and his servant wife, and will remain forever be his sex victim. Perhaps he will keep her in the obedience house for a long time and treat her as a slave female. He would not release her until he tamed her with his stick and dick, makes her his submissive and docile Muslim wife, and therefore transform her through sexual rape from a disobedient wife into an obedient woman. Then he could continue to rape her day and night. She will lose her value as a human being and become less than an animal. The beautiful, sexy, naked virgin bride somehow managed to banish those sad memories of the past and unpleasant imaginations and focus in bed on making physical love with her lover, groom, and true Christian husband, Sami. Then she turned her body and faced him. She opened her legs and let her groom's legs enter between them. Her boyfriend understood that she was ready, so he stopped kissing her. The two lovers started hugging and touching each other's bodies. They are experiencing great moments of pleasure and joy. Her groom is not alone touching her body anymore, but the bride too hugs and kisses him. She finally felt his hand grab her little red panties and began to undo them. She stopped her movements and his touches and helped him take off her underwear. When her red underwear reached her knees, she sat down on the bed and took it off herself. She throws it on the floor and she is completely naked and ready to voluntarily have sex for the first time in her life. She felt his hands bless her gently on the bed. Then she stretched out her legs, spread them wide, and bent them halfway. After that, she attracted her lover to her. His whole body now lay all over her body. She loves and wants to feel his masculine weight on her naked body. Their completely they are completely naked bodies are intertwined and held together. Their hearts beat loudly like drums. What happy moments for our virgin girl when she has sex with her lover for the first time. And what a painful and cruel experience it was for a virgin girl to be raped by a human beast or a groom whom she was forced by her father or brother to marry him against her will and without her consent. All her pleasure and feelings now focus on the small part of her body where the lover's hand gently fondles and caresses it. Whenever he touches her in her virgin pussy, she feels a strong stream of pleasure that started from there and in a few seconds spreads all over her naked body. The great pleasures made her hold her lover very tightly, and every now and then she would lift her midsection up and push him on his big red dick. She now wants him to insert it completely into her virgin pussy. Her legs meet on top of her lover's back. This repeated act now prevents her groom from using his hand. So he removes his hand from what is called in Arabic her camel or in English her pussy and replaces it with his cock. Intisar began to feel that Sami seemed to forcefully push his large phallus into her small, circumcised virgin vagina. She spread her legs wider to make it easier for him to reach his cock inside her pussy. She doesn't need or want anything except for his big dick in her virgin pussy to go in and out with a faster motion and longer time before ejaculation. His repeated attempt to penetrate her gives her an immense amount of pleasure. He started to make moaning sounds because of the great happiness she is feeling now. The bride Intisar wants to scream happily about the immense sexual pleasure her groom Sami gives her. The fun is just too much to take in anymore. Mix it with some mild pain. She started moaning and crying softly as her lover tries again and again to insert his large, fully erect dick into her tiny, virgin pussy. Her mind begins to interfere again. It is not a memory or a fantasy this time, but her mind suddenly fills it with many ideas. The naked bride tries to prevent the agitation of the unpleasant thoughts that are beginning to fill her mind. But these ideas are very stubborn and harmful. Intisar felt as if she no longer had control of her mind. Stubborn thoughts did not come as dreams, fantasies, or hallucinations. Not even the memories of her bitter experience wandering aimlessly through the streets of Khartoum city without shelter, money, or shoes. They came as sounds of screaming and crying, like some intruder was ringing loud bells inside her mind. It was so loud and clear that she thought it was coming from the mouth of a real human. It is the voice of a young girl. This crying girl is as if sleeping next to her on the same bed and screaming loudly, asking for help. Thus, the naked bride had to open her eyes and look around. The naked bride Intisar did not see anyone but her naked groom Sami, and so she concluded that the crying girls voice was just a figment of her imagination. Then the girl closed then the girlfriend closed her eyes again and tried to focus on her boyfriend and the wonderful time of sex pleasure they were having together on their first wedding night in the hotel room. Alas, what a pity! She heard the crying girl scream again. The girl screamed over and over while calling her name Intisar, 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 and bleeding for help. This time, the naked bride recognized the crying voice. It is the voice of her late sister Firdos. Intisar can now hear and see very clearly her sister crying out for help. She's bound hands and feet. She couldn't do anything to stop him from raping her. The evil old man galloped like a ferocious beast or a fearsome octopus over her sister's young and tender body. His, his fleshless bones bears her delicate body like a scary tortoise or a crocodile. It is piercing her flesh like long thorns of a hedgehog, while creeping slowly on her naked body. His toothless mouth bit her lips. His tongue His tongue was like that of a mad dog, sucking, licking, and biting her mouth and cheeks. His old cock was like a rusty old piece of metal that had forcibly inserted itself into her virgin vagina. He caused her unbearable pain. Her vagina was oozing profusely red blood like a broken faucet or a tap, where her mouth was vomiting. She was crushed and smothered. She was crushed like a small sparrow by the claws of a vulture. She was slaughtered. She was slaughtered like an innocent lamb by the knife of a ruthless butcher or a terrorist. One Intisar clearly saw her naked little sister Firdos dying like helpless prey under the evil old man's fleshly body. She started crying loudly. Her bridegroom thought his bride was screaming at the pain every young virgin experiences at her first sexual intercourse. He also thought that his life phallus had penetrated her small virgin pussy, and broken her hymen, and this caused her unbearable pain. So he immediately stopped pushing his big cock more inside her virgin pussy and started massaging her body. By then he had nearly penetrated her virgin private parts. One, mas- one massaging his hand did not stop her from crying. He raised his head and looked at her face. He saw her tears fall from her beautiful eyes like great drops of torrential rain in mid-autumn. "I'm very sorry, my beloved Intisar," the lover Sami says in a tender voice. "I did not know that this might hurt you and pain you so much. I have never had sex with any woman before, but you as my bride today. If I knew that, I would do it gently, slowly, and gradually. I hear every virgin like you would feel some pain on her first wedding night. I promise you that you will never feel this severe pain again after today." From his many words of apology, his bride understood that her groom was still flying in the sky of high pleasure. As for her, she had already landed on the ground. She had lost all the joy of her lover's gentle touches. They gave her wings and made her fly high in the blue sky of the pleasure's realm. Suddenly her wings broke and she crashed like an aeroplane, and every sense of pleasure came out of her naked body. She is also like a balloon that was inflated and started to fly into the sky, and suddenly it exploded and fell. To hide her pain and tears, once again the bride put her hands on her face and turned her naked body in the opposite direction. The groom did not give up. He began to rejuvenate and revive the pleasure in the sexy body of his naked bride. He started stroking her breast again. From there, he moved to her shoulders, neck, and cheeks, and he reached the hips, the lips. He discovered that those sexy parts of her body, of her naked body, no longer interested him. His right hand moved quickly down to her cunt. This is the sensitive part of her body that the bridegroom reached for before his beloved bride shook him from his wondrous happiness with her weeping and tears. As his middle fingers vibrated, he began to gently rub her clit and labia. He felt the softness and smoothness of her kind, wet fingers. Intisar responded immediately by shaking her body and pushing it up. Sammy continued fondling her pussy. He saw her start rocking her body up and down. This time he quickly removed his hand from her hairy pussy and replaced it with his tongue. He began sucking and licking her clitoris and labia. He heard his hot pride start making those wonderful pleasure sounds. She also starts talking to him and encouraging him to continue what he is doing to her. She tells him that she likes it very much and wants more and more of it. After a while, he stopped him and reached for him from her mouth and started sucking and licking his cock as well. His penis has been aroused to perfection. Therefore, the groom Sami felt a lot of enjoyment while his bride Intisar was sucking and licking his phallus as if it were a lollipop or an ice cream cone. And also, he had tasted before and crying the sweetness and trying the sweetness of the moisture of her wet booty on his tongue, like vanilla ice cream. But he became worried that he might ejaculate and semen inside her mouth and leave her sexually unsatisfied. That is why he stopped her from licking and sucking his fully erect cock and went all over her naked body. Her legs quickly spread out and surrounded his legs. Sammy's big dick began to penetrate into Sar's pussy again. This time he felt her bush up so hard that his cock was fully inserted inside her pussy and filled it perfectly. All around it is a small opening. Then the boyfriend's fellas has started to move in and out of the girl's friend pussy faster and harder. The British pride started creating those beautiful sounds again. The handsome groom kept moving faster and faster until he led his white semen into her womb. Lover Sami felt the greatest amount of sexual pleasure that he had ever enjoyed in his life. The beloved bride held him very tightly as she felt the drops of semen dripping down the inside of her pussy and deepening until it reached her womb and united them forever. The beloved Intisar also reached the peak of her sexual pleasure and had sudden thick discharge with orgasm. Naked Bride enjoyed simultaneous vaginal and clitoral orgasm for the first time in her life. It is like an earth-shattering orgasm. Finally, the two horribly persecuted lovers, the rich son Sami and the poor daughter Intisar, managed to break all social, religious, and legal barriers and fulfill their life's dream and united in heart, mind, soul, and body forever. They felt that on this historical day of their holy Christian marriage, they had together achieved the impossible, since they had always believed that no power in heaven above and no authority on earth below could succeed in defending them from uniting together as everlasting husband and wife, and shall live happily ever after. Chapter 68. The trial of the gang that raped and killed the second innocent girl. The trial of the gang that kidnapped, beat, imprisoned, starved, raped, and killed the late second innocent girl Firdos Ibrahim Mustafa Jabir, the victim of the second brutal rape, took place on Monday morning, corresponding to October 30, 2017. It was conducted shortly after the happy occasion that the newly married couple, Samin Intisar exhibited on the Ferris wedding night, a wonderful night on their real honeymoon. In every trial, there will be two disputing parties. One will accuse the other. Each party will have an attorney to defend its cause. If the suspect's lawyer turns out to be a good lawyer, not necessarily a good person, the charge may fail and the suspect will be acquitted of the crime. From this, we can conclude that most of trials nowadays are not about whether an accusation is true or false, but rather a battle of words between two lawyers. In the trial of those accused of kidnapping, raping, and killing the second innocent girl, the late Firdos, who died at the age of 15, has two lawyers. One of them is defending the main suspect, Mr. Osman Al Taib, and his two partners in the crime, the servant, Mr. Harun, and the nurse, Ms. Zakiya. And the other lawyer is defending justice and fairness for his late girlfriend Firdos. Both lawyers are graduated from the same University of Khartoum and therefore have equal knowledge of the law of their country. The only difference between them is their practical experience. The suspect's lawyer has practiced petition for 20 years, while the victim's lawyer has absolutely no experience as this is his first case. Very few people showed up on Monday morning for the trial, although lawyer Salah announced the case in two famous and popular newspapers, Al Sahafa and Al Ayyam, in the three cities of the capital of Sudan, namely Khartoum, Bahri, and Durman. Only a few people responded to the invitation. Of the roughly 9 to 10 million people in the Sudanese capital, only 12 people attended the trial. Besides these few, there are 8 spies. The Imam of the largest mosque in Gadarif city, Maulana Sheikh Marzouk, the notorious womanizer Fattah Karar, and the so-called lawful husband of the fugitive Muslim wife Intisar, Hassan Mahjoub al-Hilali. In addition to this number, there are some close friends of the late victim Firdos. They are Salah, Muna Badriya, and Walid Hamza, and her mother Sarah. The two lawyers are Salah Ahmed Hassan Saleh and another lawyer named Faisal Farouk. This Faisal is a well-known lawyer in the capital city and has defended and won many cases. At 9:30 a.m., the three suspects were brought by the jailers and put in their proper place. Everyone looks at them. Some people have felt sorry for the beautiful young nurse, Mrs. Zakiya Karamallah. They were also saddened to see such an old man involved in heinous crimes of kidnapping, rape, and murder. None of them sympathized with the servant Harun because his hideous face reveals his ugly crime to them. Nurse Zakiya looked down most of the time. She refused to speak to the two suspects even though they tried to talk to her. The accused Harun looked anxious and afraid. The old man's prison uniform showed that he had already been tried and convicted of another crime. His scary old face shows anger, bitterness, and hatred. He is not smiling or likely to do or has done that his whole life. He makes a loud gnashing sound with his false teeth most of the time as if he is eating and chewing raw human flesh like a cannibal. At 9:50 a.m., Judge Sami Hashim and 4 members of the juryman arrived at the criminal court courtroom in Khartoum, Bahrain. Everyone got to his feet except for the evil old man. The judge reached his judgment seat and sat down with the four members of the jury. People also sat and waited for the trial to begin. The courtman came forward and read aloud the names of the three suspects. After each name, the audience hears the word present. Then the courtman changed the paper and took some of other papers from his file and started reading the charges. Your Honor, Judge Sami Hashim and the honorable jurors, the family of the deceased Firdos Ibrahim Mustafa Jabir accuses these three defendants of participating in the kidnapping, rape, and murder of their daughter. Suspect number three, Mr. Osman Al Taib, is accused of kidnapping, raping, and murdering their late daughter. Defender number one, Mr. Harun Hassan Harun, is accused by the family of being the person hired by Mr. Osman Al Taib to starve, tie with ropes and chains, and beat the deceased girl to death. Suspect number one, Mr. Harun, confessed his crime to the police authority when they questioned him. Suspect number two, the nurse, Ms. Zakia Karaballah, was hired by Mr. Osman Al Taib to treat his late first wife Firdos. She is charged with second-degree murder due to her involvement with the two primary suspects. Although she was supposed to know as a nurse that starving and beating the bride Firdos could cause her a serious illness that could eventually lead to her death. However, she kept it a secret and did not do what she had to do because her profession required her to work as a medical nurse. During her interrogation, Mrs. Dakia admitted her mistake. When the police interrogated Mr. Osman Al Taib, he denied all the written charges against him. He told the police that girl was his first wife. She wanted to leave him without divorcing her and ran away with her lover, Mr. Salah. The husband, Osman Al Taib, filed a complaint in Sharia court in Gadarif city against his unfaithful wife and her secret lover. The judge of the Sharia court issued a verdict of obedience to the recalcitrant bride. Accordingly, the police arrested her and took her to her legal husband, Mr. Asma Taib, at the Hilton International Hotel in Khartoum City. During the honeymoon, the bride acted violently in the hotel room and tried twice to kill him on the assumption that he wasn't her groom. She grabbed his throat and was about to strangle him to death, but he was saved by his bodyguard, Mr. Harun. The guard hit the violent wife on the head with a stick until she lost consciousness. The second time, the first wife beat her lawful husband's lips and refused to let him go. It was a painful sting and probably would have killed him if his bodyguard Harun had not saved him again. He freed his lips from her sharp teeth by hitting her with a big rod on the head. Mr. Osman Al Taib told the police authority that as a result of her violent behavior, he was forced to tie her with ropes for his own safety. He denied that he had starved her and beat her to death. He said that the disobedient wife herself refused to eat any food that was brought to her. In other words, the late wife Firdaus went on hunger strike for several days, which eventually led to her untimely death. For this reason, Sayyid Osman Al Taib claimed that his first wife, Firdaus, had committed suicide. The medical report confirmed the deliberate starvation and physical beating of the second wife. The medical report also revealed that the wife had been subjected to forced sexual intercourse against her consent. The large cut scars and bruises on her body showed that she had been bound hand and foot for several days. When the doctors examined the genitals of the wife's body, such as the vagina, breast, and buttocks, they found that they were severe damages in her sexual organs, which led them to conclude that the wife had been subjected to brutal and repeated rape by her husband. In addition, there were many scars on the wife's face and her entire body, which revealed the violent struggle that took place between her and the husband Osman Al Taib while he was trying to have sex with her against her desire. Four of her teeth were broken. The medical report also revealed that the wife had become pregnant with a fetus of a few days old. Doctors estimated the age of the deceased wife between 14 and 16 years. Her family provided her birth certificate, which showed that she was 15 years old when she was raped and murdered by Said Osman Al Taib. As soon as the court man finished reading the indictment, the judge called the three suspects' lawyer to present his defense. Attorney Faisal got to his feet and walked slowly toward the judge and the jury. When he reached them, he first looked at the three suspects and the audience. There is a big smile on his face. He holds some papers in his hands. His face reveals his advanced age and long experience. Even the judge seems to know him and care about him a lot. He turned his face towards the judge and began to speak in a deep and solemn voice. His words came out of his mouth one after another. Sometimes he utters a single sentence and then looks first at the judge, the suspects, and finally the audience. Then he smiles. Then he laughs. Laughter dies, and a serious look takes its place. Honorable Judge, Honorable Jerry, ladies and gentlemen, if the defendant, Mr. Osman Al Taib, the famous business tycoon in Gadaref City, is accused of kidnapping and raping his late legitimate Muslim wife, Mrs. Firdos Ibrahim Mustafa Jabir, then this trial should be postponed. First, the judge of the Sharia court and five policemen from Gadaref City should be invited to come here and defend themselves against the same charges. These gentlemen are also involved in the so-called crime of abduction and rape of the forced lawful wife of my client. The lawyer spoke these words with confidence of the defender who knew in advance that he would win the case. Big smile, burst of laughter, and serious look again. Here I have in my hands a legal and legitimate Islamic marriage contract between Mr. Osman Al Taib and Mrs. Firdos Ibrahim Mustafa Jabir. The marriage contract was conducted and concluded by His Eminence, the Blessed Imam Maulana Sheikh Marzouk, the Imam of the largest mosque in the city of Gadaref, and the elder brother of the deceased wife, Mr. Omar Ibrahim Mustafa Jabir, was the legal guardian of his sister because their father died 10 years ago. For this reason, the Gadaref Sharia court accepted the validity of the marriage and issued a ruling of obedience to the disobedient wife when she refused to join her legal husband. Imam Sheikh Marzouk is here and he can testify to the truth of what I said if the court wanted him to do so. Attorney Faisal waited for some time. When the judge waved his hand indicating that he could move on, he resumed his line of defense. The marriage contract showed the names, addresses, and signatures of the three witnesses. The marriage contract also includes the name, address, and signature of the wife's older brother, who was her guardian. As a lawyer and a jurist, I found no reason to doubt the legality of the marriage contract. It is astonishing to know that the family of the late girl, Firdos, accuses the man to whom they gave their daughter as wife in a halal Islamic marriage of kidnapping and raping her. I tried to find out from both parties whether the wife had been divorced by her husband, but neither of them confirmed that. So, on what basis does the wife's family accuse their son in law of kidnapping and rape? One lawyer, Faisal, asked the above question. He raised his shoulders and hands in disapproval. Then he smiled and laughed. The legal representative continues to say I may or may not be right, or I could be wrong, or whatever the judge and his jury come up with. Here in my hands, I have some tangible evidence presented by my client, the widowed husband, that his late first wife was cheating on him. She was having a secret love affair with a man named Salah Ahmad Hassan Saleh. This is the same man who is acting as her attorney today in this court and is trying to challenge my defense. These are disgraceful photos showing the late wife embracing and kissing her secret lover in public in this city. When lawyer Faisal said these words, he removed some of the photos from his red file and handed them over to the judge. The judge looked at them and then passed them to his jurors. Every single one of them looked at those supposedly disgraceful photos of the lovers, Salah and Firdaus. Therefore, thereafter, His Holiness collected the photographs of the lover Salah and his late girlfriend Firdaus and returned them to the advocate of Mr. Osman al-Taib. Sir, Lawyer Faisal says to Attorney Salah sarcastically, are you also interested in taking a look at these shameful pictures? Or do you already know about them? Defendant Salah remained silent, but his face showed anger. Then the cunning lawyer burst out, laughing, and said slyly, of course, you know about them because they make you anxious. I admit it is a stupid question I shouldn't have asked. Then he turned his face to the judge and jury and continued to speak with great confidence. When the defendant, Mr. Osman al Taib, learned about the secret love affair between his fourth lawful Muslim wife and the lawyer, Mrs. Salah, he asked her mother, Sarah, and her older sister, Miss Farida Ibrahim Mustafa Jabir, to allow him to have his rebellious wife. This big sister, Farida, claimed to be the sole guardian of her two young sisters, Intisar and Firdaus. So she saw that she was the only female guardian who could give her sisters in marriage to any two men she liked. We know that Islamic law or a Sharia law does not recognize a woman as a guardian over another woman, even if she is her mother or her older sister. Accordingly, her claim is baseless and has no weight in any court of law in Sudan. Ms. Farida refused to give her sister Firdaus to her legal husband and threatened to kill him if he dared to approach his legal wife. For this reason, Mr. Osman al Taib submitted a judicial complaint to the Sharia court. The judge of the Sharia court in Gadarif city considered the matter and issued a verdict of obedience against the disobedient Muslim wife Firdaus. Al-Gadarif city police arrested the rebellious wife at her home and took her to her legal husband at the Hilton International Hotel in this city. So far, I do not see any violation of the law on the basis of which my client could be accused of kidnapping his fourth Muslim wife. This is a copy of the obedience ruling issued by His Eminence Maulana Abdul Mohsin Taha, judge of the Sharia court in Gadarif city. And here is the police order issued by the Honorable Islamic Court authorizing the police officers to take the disobedient wife to her husband, said Osman al Taib. Then the lawyer, Faisal, handed over those official documents to the judge to have a look at them. Judge Sami Hashim and the jury took a quick look at the official papers and returned them to the lawyer. Now I have to prove to the court that my client is innocent like a wolf, innocent of the blood of our prophet Joseph, of rape and murder charges. When he said that, the sly lawyer burst into ghastly, hysterical, hysterical laughter like a scary villain in a horror movie. As stated in the indictment which was read to us in this esteemed courtroom today, the rebellious wife acted violently, very violently. Now, what is the thing that the Holy Quran taught us to do for such a disobedient Muslim wife who became rebellious and dangerous? In Surah An-Nisa 4, verse 34, God Almighty gives husband the right to beat their disobedient wives, which the Quran called nashis. This same noble verse allows fathers to discipline their daughters. How do we punish our bad women? We beat them for their own good. Therefore, the good husband, Osman al Taib, at that time or today, cannot be blamed for shackling and beating his disobedient Muslim wife Firdaus. The indictment also states that the rebellious wife twice tried to kill her husband. She also denied him an important right in marital relations. In all religions, customs, and norms of peoples all over the world, no wife is expected to refuse her husband when he wants to have sex with her. Therefore, Mr. Osman al-Taib had the absolute right to have sex with his legal Muslim wife, whether she agreed or refused. This is a divine right granted by God Almighty in Surah Al-Nisa 4, verse 3 and verse 34. There is no such thing called rape in the Islamic halal marriage. If the husband married his Muslim wife according to the Holy Quran and the blessed Sunnah of the Prophet Muhammad, may God bless him and grant him peace. I'm surprised to learn that the family interpreted that marital right as rape. Mr. Osman Taib informed me that he did not bind his first Muslim wife Firdaus because he wanted to have sex with her, but because she wanted to kill him. His bodyguard Harun and his private nurse Dakia confessed during their interrogations that the first wife of my defendant had been behaving violently all the time and had made two attempts to kill her Muslim husband. As a wealthy business tycoon, well known and very famous all over Sudan, Mr. Osman Taib came Mr. Harun as his bodyguard. This is not only to protect him from his violent wife Firdaus, but from every other human being who wanted to kill him, including his rebellious first wife, his three other wives, and their sons, daughters, and grandchildren. Naturally, when the rebellious first wife Firdaus acted violently and tried to kill him twice, his bodyguard came to his rescue. The guard Harun was receiving monthly financial salaries from the defendant for this purpose. As his bodyguard, he goes with him wherever he goes and sleeps wherever his boss sleeps. We all know this is a must job specification for any loyal bodyguard. Ms. Zakia is the private nurse for the business magnate Mr. Osman Al Taib. She told me when I visited her in prison that she had treated the throat and lips of Mr. Osman Al Taib when his first wife tried to kill him. My wealthy client had spent several days during his honeymoon with his new bride, Firdaus, at the Hilton International Hotel in Khartoum City. During those days, that are supposed to be happy between the newly married couple, there were several sexual relations between the Muslim groom Osman al Taib with his legal bride Firdaus. Of course, the rebellious and unfaithful wife always resisted him and had and he had to forcibly fuck her pussy by his dick and makes her pregnant with his baby whether she like it or not. I hope the court will excuse me for using plain words in referring to the act of sexual intercourse between a groom and his bride. If this can be interpreted as rape, then the panel of this court points the accusing finger at the verse of the Holy Quran that I referred to before. In frank words, the court says to God Almighty that you are unjust because you gave this right to the Muslim man over his disobedient wife, or his rebellious daughter, or his immoral sister. This noble verse of the Holy Quran commands the beating of the Nashi's wife, the disobedient and rebellious woman who refuses her husband to have sex with her naked body through his phallus and fuck her vagina any time of the day and at any sex style. Her man wishes to do it, even if he wants to have anal sex with her. She has no right to refuse him. Surah Al-Baqarah 2, verse 223 allows the husband to choose the sex style he wants, and if he wants to sodomize his wife, she cannot stop him from fucking her by his phallus in the ass. Based on what I have said and showed you, the defendant is not guilty of rape and murder. Shortly after that, while spending their honeymoon at the hotel, Mr. Osman Taib was summoned by his secretary to Gadarif city to do some urgent business. Before leaving, he transferred his new bride Firdos to a rented house in the opulent Amarat locality and headed to his native town. He left her in the care of his bodyguard, Mr. Harun. Mr. Osman Tay promised his first wife, Firdos, and bodyguard Harun to return after 2 days. He took his private nurse, Miss Zakia, with him. He needed her to be with him all the time and treat him for the disease of his lips caused by the bite of his rebellious and dangerous bride Firdos. According to Nurse Zakia, Mr. Osman Taib was unable to speak with his mouth for several days. And the reason for that, as I mentioned before, was the swelling of his lips as a result of that fatal stink through the sharp teeth of the disobedient first wife. She became like a mad dog and beat her lawful husband. His private doctor advised him to stop talking and chewing food for several days until his patient's lips healed. Unfortunately, when, the, when my client reached his city, he was accused of bribery and detained. Some days in prison he could not return, and he did not call his wife, Firdos, and his guard, Harun. Of course, my client cannot be held guilty of being late or of failing to communicate with his first wife and servant. He was arrested and beaten by Gadarif police during his interrogation. I have here an official medical report stating that my client remained in a comatose state in the ICU for several days in Gadarif city. The report also stated that the defendant was severely beaten by some gang members inside the prison and his body trembled with stampede during violent riots and fighting between prisoners and guards. Because of this violence, my client became lame for life. Mr. Osman Taib remained in a prolonged coma in the intensive care unit of the civil hospital for more than a week in the city of Gadarif. During those days, the health condition of the first wife, Firdos, in Khartoum city was deteriorating day after day because of her hunger strike. The guard Harun was supposed to inform the hospital or take her to the nearby medical clinic, but unfortunately he did not. The nurse, Miss Zakia, returned 2 days later and visited the first wife of her imprisoned employer. When she saw her serious condition, she encouraged Mr. Harun to take her to the hospital. Unfortunately, it was too late because my client's first wife breathed her last and died a few days later in the General Hospital of Khartoum City. If my client had been present, he would not have kept his sick wife in his rented house. He was definitely going to take her to the hospital. One last thing I have to mention about my client. He's a kind-hearted man, a good Muslim, and known for his goodness and generosity in his city. He built the largest mosque in the city of Gadarif, the high school for girls, and the women's ward in the civil hospital in the same city. Such a kind, a righteous man with such a big heart would never kill anyone. Therefore, Mr. Osman Taib is innocent and cannot be held responsible for the deaths of his first wife, Firdos Ibrahim Mustafa Jabir. The wife died because of her hunger strike and the carelessness of the guard Harun. Dear Honorable Judge and Jurymen, this is the whole matter before you. As I prove to all of you, Mr. Osman Taib was not guilty of murder. His first wife, Firdos, had herself committed suicide. The charges of kidnapping and rape are also baseless. Accordingly, I ask this esteemed court to acquit my client, Mr. Osman Taib, of these false charges. Thank you, Your Honor, Judge Sami Hashim, the honorable jurors, and all the ladies and gentlemen present here. And I ask God Almighty to have mercy on the soul of the late wife, Mrs. Firdos, and to dwell her in a spacious palace in paradise, and to give patience to her honorable husband, Mr. Osman Taib, and unite her with him in paradise as is one of his wives, and her family members, and may God prolong their lives. Amen, O Lord of the seven heavens and eight earths. Chapter 69. The Criminal Court of Khartoum ruling on the Islamic marriage and the kidnapping and killing of the second innocent girl. After defense lawyer Faisal finished his defense, he sat on his chair and the second lawyer was asked to come forward and present his arguments. Salah got to his feet and walked slowly towards the center. From his steps, the court and the public deduced that he was tense and anxious. When he started to speak, he was speaking in a stuttering voice. He began to utter his words in a low voice. After some time, the stuttering faded from him, and he speaks. As he speaks, he confronts the judge and jury. His Highness Judge Sabi Hashim and the Honorable Jurymen. Attorney Faisal Farouk told the esteemed court the case from its end, making it seem as if there was no crime of kidnapping, rape, and murder as it is in reality. That is why I want to show you the tragedy of the late victim Firdos from its inception. The court can well understand the roots of the problem between Mr. Osman al-Taib and his alleged first Muslim wife, the late teenage girl Firdos Ibrahim Mustafa Jabir. First of all, she was 15 years old when she was kidnapped, raped, and murdered by the 71 years old man. This problem caused a lot of troubles for Firdos and her family members. She was not the only victim of this tragedy, but her late brother Osman and her sister Intisar fell victim to the selfish motives of the accused Mr. Osman al-Taib. The problem began when his son Sami fell in love with Firdos' sister Intisar. The son approached his father and asked him for permission to marry his girlfriend. The father was strongly against friendship because the girl is from a poor family and his son is from a rich family. The father was determined to marry his son Sami to the daughter of Maulana Sheikh Marzouk, the imam of the largest mosque in the city of Gadarif. He even proposed and made the engagement of his son with the daughter of the imam without his consent. The fiancée name is Samia. Sami refused to accept his father's choice and told him that he could only marry his girlfriend Intisar. The controlling father said to his son, I will not allow you to marry a poor girl. Objection, Your Honor, lawyer Faisal shouted. And before he got permission to voice his objection, he said, Lawyer Mr. Salah does not have the right to disclose the dispute of the defendant's family members in court. Your objection is rejected, the judge shouted. In any case, Lawyer Salah resumes. The father of Intisar, the late Mr. Ibrahim Mustafa Jabir, when he was alive, married two women. From the first wife, Sakina, he had a son, Umar, and a daughter, Badriya. Farida, Usman, Intisar, and Firdos are the children of his second wife, Sarah. Umar is the eldest son of the late Ibrahim, who is 26 years old, and Farida is the eldest daughter, who is 25 years old. They both think they are the guardians of their younger sisters. Because Farida is a woman, the Islamic law gave this right to her brother, her older half brother Umar, because he's a man. Umar is a notorious criminal and a member of a vicious gang in the city of Gadarif, whereas Farida is a university graduate and is currently working as a translator in a large foreign company in Abu Dhabi. Therefore, Imam Maulana Sheikh Marzouk took advantage of that loophole in the Islamic Sharia law, which gives the woman's guardianship in marriage to the man only. And he cunningly used the criminal brother Umar as a mazoon to give the two sisters, Intisar and Firdos, in Sham marriages to Hassan Mahjoub al-Hilali and Sayyid Osman al-Tayyib without their knowledge, presence, and consent. Secondly, before those evil deeds, there was always hatred and quarrels between the two wives of the late Mr. Ibrahim Mustafa Jabir because of polygamy. When the first wife, her son Umar, and her daughter Badriya learned of the love affair between Tisar, the poor girl, and Sami, the son of the rich man, Sayyid Osman al-Tayyib, they tried by all means to spoil the friendship. The mother and daughter went to an evil witch doctor named Haj Muhammad. That evil magician promised to spoil the love relationship between Intisar and Sami through his servants or demons whom he claimed to possess and could use to harm people. I have a strong objection, Lawyer Faisal shouted again. What is the objection? The judge inquires. First of all, Lawyer Salah must tell the court where he got this confidential family information from. Second, he must tell us what this has to do with the present trial. Accepting the first objection and rejecting the second objection, says the judge. The information was provided to me by Miss Badriya, the daughter of the first wife of the late Mr. Ibrahim. She is here in court and ready to bear witness to what I have said. If Miss Badriya was present here, would she stand up and confirm what Attorney Salah said about her? The half-sister of the late wife Firdos rose to her feet and confirmed under oath what Salah had said. Then the judge asked her to return to her seat. As I said, Salah continued, the witch doctor Haj Muhammad promised Badriya and her mother, Sakina, that he would cut off by creating obstacles the emotional relationship between Intisar and Sami. When the daughter and her mother left his house, another visitor named Hassan Mahjoub al-Hilal approached him for the same matter, but with a different motive. He asked the magician Haj Muhammad to spoil the friendship between the two lovers because he is madly in love with Intisar, but it is a selfish, one-sided love. Hassan here, and if he is an honest man, then he should confess his selfish love, which is only one-sided, for the girl Intisar. When he promised, when he proposed to her for marriage, she told him that she did not love him and did not want to marry him. Intisar, as I said, she has true love for her boyfriend Sami. Both are deeply in love with each other and are engaged and want to be together as husband and wife. I object, yelled the suspect lawyer again. I want to know how Lawyer Salah learned about Hassan's visit to the magician Haj Muhammad. I learned of his visit through the sorcerer Haj Muhammad himself. The judge says, Would you explain yourself better to the court? Obtaining this information through Haj Muhammad's confession. As a result, he was arrested for rape and public deceit. He is currently in pre-trial detention in Al Gadarif prison. This is a transcript of his recorded confession. Attorney Salah then handed the tape to Judge Sami Hashim and continued speaking. This is the tape on which elder sister Farida tricked the vile witch doctor into discovering that he was the mastermind of the two marriages evil plots. Can the court know where you got this classified material from? I got it through Intisar's older sister Farida. She visited his home and secretly recorded his confession. Haj Muhammad did not know that she was the sister of the two girls, Intisar and Firdos. So he told her everything. She used a small detective tape and recorded his sinister plots in full. He admitted that he was the mastermind of the two false marriages. Hassan's father and Mr. Osman al-Taib are among the dearest friends of Haj Muhammad. To these three evil friends, we can add Imam Maulana Sheikh Marzouk as the fourth evil friend. When Haj Muhammad learned that his visitor was the son of his friend Mr. Mahjub al-Hilali, he went to his father, expected that Mr. Osman al-Taib would be interested in severing the relationship between his rich son and the poor girl. From him, he learned that his son Sami had already challenged his authority, and Mr. Osman al-Taib promised to pay any amount of money to Haj Muhammad if he could break off the friendship between his rich son and the poor girl. Moreover, Haj Muhammad learned that Sayyid Osman al-Taib and Maulana Sheikh Marzouk were interested in marrying the son Sami and the daughter Sumaya. To sum up the long story, the evil wizard Haj Muhammad introduced these four friends to the half-brother of the two sisters. Their brother Umar, as I've mentioned, really hates his sisters and is waiting for any opportunity to spoil their lives. So he agreed to their marriage without their consent. Haj Muhammad received bribes from Hassan's father, Sami's father, and the evil brother Umar, Ibrahim Mustafa Jabir, as the elder brother of Intisar and Firdos, acted as their legal guardian. The Imam of the Grand Mosque, Sheikh Marzouk, conducted the two marriages in the office of Mr. Osman al-Taib. Maulana did not try to find out whether the girls Intisar and Firdos had another brother or not. Umar told him that their father died 10 years ago. The three witnesses to these two false marriages are Al-Haj Muhammad, Fattah Karrar, and Maulana and Mr. Mahjub al-Hilali. The so-called halal Islamic marriages were not held in the mosque as they falsely claim, but in the office of Mr. Osman al-Taib. If we were to accept these two evil schemes as lawful marriages, there would be no difference between us and the people of the forest. Only the law of the jungle can justify such ancestor plots as legitimate marriages. These two invalid marriages should be considered by this criminal court as serious crimes committed against two innocent sisters. All the people mentioned by me have selfish interests behind such sham marriages. None of them consider the interests of the two innocent sisters. They sold and bought every sister as if she was a slave girl. Finally, I would like to admit one fact. Yes, I was in love with the late girl Firdos when these two evil plots were committed against her and her sister Intisar. She and I began our love before the selfish and lustful old man Osman al-Taib bought her as his slave girl rather than his first Muslim wife from her evil half-brother Umar. Umar Ibrahim Mustafa Jabir is a notorious criminal who is currently serving a 16-year prison sentence in Gaddarif Central Prison. He was tried and convicted for his involvement in the crime of kidnapping and raping another innocent girl by the name of Muna Salahuddin Hashim. Gangster Omar and his 5 gang members had kidnapped her while she was returning from school and took her to a brothel and brutally raped her there. This girl, the innocent victim of the first crime of kidnapping and rape, is now my legal wife and sits here in this esteemed courtroom. She is ready and willing to corroborate every word I have said about convicted prisoner Omar and the heinous crime he and the 5 other gang members committed against her. When the judge did not ask the first innocent girl Mona to come forward and confirm the words of her husband, lawyer Salah resumed his defense. Moreover, Mr. Osman Taib added to his first heinous act another heinous crime, which is the kidnapping, rape, and brutal killing of the second innocent girl Firdaus. The medical report confirmed the imprisonment, rape, beating, starvation, and killing of the late girl Firdaus at the hand of her so-called legal Muslim husband Osman al-Taib. In addition to that, here is this sad emotional letter that my ex-girlfriend Firdaus wrote to me during her final suffering and dying in the Khartoum General Hospital. The excruciating letter described in detail how her hands and feet were tied with ropes and chains, starved, raped, beaten, and brutally murdered by her alleged legal Muslim husband Osman al-Taib and the second accused Gar Harun. Based on this strong and tangible evidence that I presented today, these 3 suspects, Mr. Osman al-Taib, Mr. Harun Hassan Harun, and Ms. Dakiya Karamallah, deserve severe penalties for their horrific crimes against the late innocent girl Firdaus. At the very least, these 2 guilty men, Osman and Harun, should receive the death penalty and be sent to the gallows and hanged to death. When the lawyer Salah finished narrating the 2 evil plots, he handed to the judge the first love letter he had received from his late beloved girlfriend Firdaus. Then he bowed his head to the judge and his jurymen as respect and appreciation. That done, he returned to his seat and sat next to his beautiful bride, Muna, the first victim of a vicious kidnapping and brutal rape. Then the judge said, "Does the defense lawyer Faisal have anything to say or add?" "Yes, Honorable Judge and jury, I have to rebuttal what Attorney Salah said. The lawyer Salah is wrong, and I will tell you why I think that. I simply think he is new in the criminal case system in the courts of law. In short, what Mr. Salah presented has nothing to do with our current case. It was not necessary to expose the private affairs of other people unrelated to the case in question. For example, what does this court have to do with the quarrels of the 2 competing rival wives of the late Ibrahim Mustafa Jabir, the father of the late wife Firdaus, or the private disputes between my client Mr. Osman Taib with his son Sami? Or should we close our minds and believe the superstitious believe that the black magic power of the so-called witch doctor Haj Muhammad can separate lovers and spoil relations between husbands and wives? I would like Attorney Salah to tell us about his opinion on black magic. The lawyer Salah says out loud, "And I do not believe that the magician Haj Muhammad has any demonic power, as he claimed to his visitors that he could, through his devilish servants, separate lovers or harm husbands and wives. Having said that, I strongly believe that The kidnapping, rape, and murder of the second innocent girl, Firdaus Ibrahim Mustafa Jabir, was not committed by these three suspects only, but by many other people. Sharia court judges, policemen, the Imam of the Grand Mosque, Maulana Sheikh Marzouk, the Imam of the Grand Mosque, Maulana Sheikh Marzouk, the famous politician Mahjoub al-Hilali, and Faki, or the witch doctor Haj Muhammad. Unfortunately, those people are all known and respected people in our Islamic community in Gadar city. Haj Muhammad was the mastermind of the two evil plots, and these three suspects and other men of the society mentioned by me are the hands that carried out the heinous crime against the innocent and their aide girl, the late Firdaus, who was butchered horrifically by her so-called lawful Muslim husband Osman al-Taib and his wicked servant Harun Hassan Harun. Lawyer Salah could not complete his defense when he remembered and imagined the horror of the crime of kidnapping, rape, and the brutal murder of his late beloved girlfriend Firdaus. So he stopped speaking. I wiped away the stream of tears from his weeping eyes. Then he returned to his chair and sat near his bride Muna. Judge Sami Hashim said that the court is now opening the door for lawyers to cross-examining the three suspects. When defense lawyer Faisal did not respond to the judge's call, lawyer Salah rose to his feet again and asked for permission to speak to nurse Dakia Karamallah. When he got the judge's approval, he went to the suspected nurse and began questioning her. You have been appointed, Ms. Zakia, as stated in the indictment, by Mr. Osman Taib as his private nurse. Did he tell you it was your job to take care of his health or that of his first wife? The health of his new bride, Firdaus, says Zakia. Did he tell you what is wrong with his new bride? Health problem? Yes, sir. He told me that his new bride is disobedient, rebellious wife and a violent girl who sometimes attacks him and other times hurts herself. You mean to say that he told you that he hired you as a private nurse to treat his violent wife and himself when she physically attacks and hurts him and herself? Yes, sir. When did he tell you that? Before the police brought him the allegedly rebellious wife or after she was brought to him? Before the dangerous first wife comes to the hotel? This means that Mr. Osman Taib expected his first wife to behave violently before the police brought her to him at the hotel. Yes, I think he expected that violent behavior from her. Did he tell you why she is going to act violently? No, sir. Did you at least guess the reason for her violence after the five policemen brought her to him from Gadarif to Khartoum? Absolutely not, sir. Well, you are a girl, Miss Zakia, and you must know that when a 15-year-old teenage girl like the late Firdaus was forced to marry an old man of 70 years who is older than her grandfather in age, she would naturally rebel against him and reject him as a husband. I, I didn't think of that, sir. Have you ever read the famous book Season of Immigration to the North by Al-Taib Saleh? In that book, the widow acts violently and kills her new husband, the old man, on their first wedding night. She did this because she was given by her male relatives to marry him without her consent. Therefore, her case is the same as that of the 15-year-old teenage girl Firdaus and the 71-year-old man Osman al-Tayyib. Anyone who reads this great classical novel will agree with the widow's, widow's right to defend her honor and her body against her supposedly lawful Muslim husband. Everyone in the world must defend herself against her rapist, and the law allows her to attempt to kill him in self-defense. I have not read such a novel, sir, but I agree with you that a woman will defend herself against her rapist. But Said Osman al Tayyib was the legal Muslim husband of his first wife Firdaus. He married her legally according to the Holy Quran and the blessed Sunnah of the Prophet Muhammad. May God bless him and grant him peace. He even he even showed me his marriage certificate with his first lawful Muslim wife, Firdaus Ibrahim Mustafa Jabir. So how do you call his halal marital and sexual relationship with his first Muslim wife, Firdaus, kidnapping and rape? Well, it also appears that you, Ms. Zakia, has been compelled to believe by the argument of the legal representative of Mr. Osman al-Tayyib that the fictitious marriage between him and his late innocent victim Firdaus was a legitimate Islamic marriage. As for me, I do not see it. As for me, I do not see it as anything other than a sinister plot concocted by evil men and carried out against an innocent minor girl who is not more than 15 years old, and therefore younger than the grandfather of her alleged Muslim husband when he kidnapped her and raped her to death through the Sharia court under police force. The nurse remained silent and did not comment on Attorney Salah's last strong words of condemnation above. Well, Ms. Zakia, at least you know that our Sudanese ancestors acted very violently when the Arab invaders came to enslave them in the name of religion. They have been fighting against them for a long period of time. They did the same against the Turkish invaders and the British colonists. Objection, the lawyer Mr. Faisal shouted. The analogy is wrong, and the lawyer Salah puts misleading examples in the mind of the suspect, Ms. Zakia. The objection was overturned and rejected, said the main judge. Nurse Zakia, continues lawyer Salah. As you just said, Mr. Osman Taib told you that his wife is self-harming. Did he tell you why she grabbed his throat and choked him and then bit his lips? No, sir. Well, you probably guess why she was trying to kill him. At that time, I had not guessed such a thing. Not at all, sir. Anyway, if your job as a nurse is to take care of his violent wife, why were you taken with him to Gadaref city? I cannot answer your question, sir, because that has nothing to do with this case. Why not? I think I can help you answer this question. He changed your duty from dealing with his violent wife to being his private secretary. And that new job got you in trouble with the Gadari bodies. There Zakia started crying. Lawyer Salah went to her and put his hand on her shoulder to encourage her.